Eventhrone, known during the Age of Creation as Eventhrone, means the balance of natures in the ancient tongue. Since the first sunrise over Eventhrone many millennia ago, that balance has flawlessly corrected itself time and time again. But the universe is vast, and some things are beyond even the control of the gods. Hello everyone, and welcome to Firebrand Fables. If you're a fan of fantasy, science fiction, or horror, then stick around, because new videos release every week. Today, I'm going to be doing something a little different. Instead of telling you a story, I'm going to talk to you about the world of Eventhrone, more specifically, the pantheon of gods and goddesses that the inhabitants of Eventhrone worship. There are plenty of gods and goddesses in the pantheon of Eventhrone, but only 5 are credited with the creation of the known universe. These gods, known as Primordials, are the figureheads of the pantheon. All that is, was, or ever will be belongs under the domain of one or more of the Primordials. The gods were once deeply invested in the lives of mortals. In the beginning, they guided them to form tribes, taught them how to use tools, how to surpass the hunter-gatherer lifestyle, and showed them how to harness magic for their own uses. The gods do love their creations, but to say that love is gentle or coddling in nature would be a lie. There are some who call the gods cruel or callous, claiming that they take pleasure in separating the wheat from the chaff. However, life, death, and all things between are simply brushstrokes on the canvas of the universe to them. Each brushstroke is performed with the utmost care and solemnity, with the intention of creating something beautiful, impactful, awe-inspiring, and like all art, it's never finished, only abandoned. The 5 primordial gods are as follows. Gaia, the goddess of life and land. Pythios, the god of knowledge and creativity. Taliesin, the god of conflict and chaos. Nimue, goddess of deception and the ocean. And last but not least, Trinus, god of death and the sky. Unlike their descendants, the Primordials are somewhat incorporeal in nature. They have no human likeness or physical body, or at least not one that they reveal to others, and exist in a state that could be more closely described as energy. The Primordials exist within and without everything. They are the minds and mechanisms behind the universe. However, that hasn't stopped the peoples of Eventhrone from creating physical likenesses of them. With that said, it is indeed possible, though extremely unlikely, for the primordial gods to die. If such a thing were to happen to one or more of them and there was no way for them to heal or reincarnate, gods forbid, one of the dead gods' descendants would elevate to take their place, like how royal families name heirs and establish a hierarchy of potential successors. If there was no such system for replacement, horrible things would happen. For example, without Gaia, all physical life would perish and material realms such as Eventhrone couldn't exist. Death and the ethereal would consume all that is, not because of any malice on Trinus's part, but because there is nothing else. Without Pythios, the secrets of the universe would be forever lost. The ability to tell stories and use imagination would vanish, and the intelligence of mortal beings would regress to a state that precedes the Stone Age, with no hope of advancing beyond a baser, instinctual, and animalistic lifestyle. Gaia, Mother Nature, goddess of life. Understandably, most temples on Eventhrone that are constructed to honor one specific god belong to Gaia. She's viewed as the matriarch, the one that's revered above all others, because her domain and the domains of her descendants can offer aid or comfort in the darkest of times. It's because of her protection and guidance that she is the most often and commonly worshipped primordial, though she doesn't demand or expect any kind of reverence. Gaia exists within all forms of life, as part of their energy or soul, a force of healing and growth, and a subtle, instinctual voice of guidance and protection. Pythios, god of knowledge, the spring from which all magic draws, the universal artist. There is not a single college, library, or institute of any kind on Eventhrone that lacks memorabilia, places of worship, or some other form of dedication to Pythios. He is the patron god of scholars, artists, and mages, and he's often credited as the source of their discovery, invention, creation, or mastery, excepting those that have grown arrogant of their own abilities. Pythios' being is said to be tied to the energies of magic, the physical laws which bind the known universe, and the source of inspiration and innovation within one's mind. Taliesin, god of strife, change, and emotion, sometimes portrayed as a warrior poet, the hero making a final stand against impossible odds only to prove victorious, the reckless gambler playing a game of fate, or the mad puppeteer. There is a truth in all of these portrayals, but every culture and every individual will view him in a slightly different light, and no one of them is more correct than any other. Before there were wars, Taliesin was seen as both the brave hunter and the vicious wolf pack, and in later years, he was seen as both the brutal tactician and the diplomat who brought peace. In truth, he is the balance, the one who incites conflict and paves the way for a peaceful resolution, when it's possible. He is the agent of change, the one who is directly or indirectly responsible for the events that, quote-unquote, separate the wheat from the chaff, though a closer analogy might be to call him a blacksmith, forging a person like a piece of iron, casting off the waste or slag and tempering the metal with the goal of making it better and stronger. Nimue, goddess of deception and the ocean. She is a rather complicated being. Those that worship her are most commonly the kinds of people or creatures that cling to the shadows, the ones who shy away from the hustle and bustle of civilization, the ones who prowl in the dark to earn their next meal or avoid becoming one themselves, and lastly, the ones who surround themselves with conversation, living and dying by the words they share and the secrets they reveal. Despite what you may think, Nimue and her descendants are not evil. She represents the white lie that's used to comfort an already troubled mind, as well as the cloak of shadows that keeps one hidden and safe. She's also the embodiment of the ocean, the secrets that hide beneath the waves, and the deceptive nature of the tide, specifically how it can seem perfectly safe for a swim before pulling you away from shore with a strong rip current. Certain more primal cultures on Eventhrone tell stories that depict Nimue as a trickster. They say she pulled one too many pranks on the other gods and was banished from their heavenly realms. Now she lives alone on the moon, with only the tide and the night to keep her company. Trinus, the god of death, the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Trinus is, without a doubt, the most vilified primordial of all, and the reason is plain to see, though completely unfounded. Every time someone has a near-death experience, loses a family member, or is approaching death themselves, their blame and hatred is directed towards Trinus, and the same goes for his descendants. In actuality, Trinus is simply the one who allows the fallen to pass into the next place. He weighs the quality of one's soul, judges them on their capacity for good and improvement, and sentences them to one of many afterlives. He does still have some say in how one might meet their end, but it's not as blatant or sadistic as many people claim. When reaping someone who is foundationally evil or irredeemably weak to the ways of evil, Trinus may draw out their death to an extent that he feels they have grown to deserve over the course of their lives. When reaping someone who is inescapably suffering from evil, or simply at the end of their days, Trinus will aspire to make their death as quick and/or painless as possible. As a side note, Trinus is also god of the skies, having the ability to rearrange the stars and form constellations in honor of legendary figures or stories, but that part is usually left out by those that vilify him. Now, these gods once directly influenced the fate of Eventhrone and the mortals who call it home, but that was before the prehistoric era, the Age of Creation, ended. When the first settlements were built and the dawn of civilization was at hand, the gods stepped back from their creation and decided to trust in the balance of natures that they had established. They're still intrinsically tied to Eventhrone and the parts of it that belong to their domain, but now the fate of the world is in the hands of those who call it home. Mostly. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore of Eventhrone. If you want to see more of this sort of content, let me know by liking, subscribing, and commenting. I do plan on making more deep dive videos like this on other aspects of Eventhrone, as well as the other worlds that I'm writing, but that'll have to wait for now. Want early access to future content? Support my channel by becoming a member of my Patreon. As a member, you'll get daily updates, early access to upcoming videos, and more. Link in the description. Also, I'd like to take a quick second to thank everyone that's already become a member there. I really appreciate your guys' support. Sorry if my voice sounds a little rough or messy this video. I'm just coming down from a cold, so... Anyways, thanks again for watching. Peace.